Thank you for tuning in. Of course, this is your man, Tommy K, here with another episode of WWE Raw Remix, professional wrestling talk, every Tuesday night right here, ustreamradio.com, and of course our other internet partners. Glad that you could tune in for another episode this week. A lot of things going on in the world of professional wrestling, more specifically in the WWE, but we also talk TNA, Ring of Honor, and, of course, DMV Wrestling. Now, the most recent episode, WWE Raw, which was on last night, actually, was an interesting event. And let me open the line up here for my co-host, the Jammer Daniels. How you doing, sir? All right. As you were, okay. But as I said, WWE Raw emanating yesterday from the nation's capital. A lot of emails that I have here about the show, and of course, send your emails info@dmvwrestling.com, and definitely want to shout out to all of our Facebook friends and people listening via Twitter, ustreamradio.com, and blogtalkradio.com as well. So, the episode last night got off to a very good start. I'm going to say that. Got off to a good start with the confrontation, if you will, Brock Lesnar brawling with John Cena, and a match was set for Extreme Rules, which is in about 3 weeks. Now, one thing I did really enjoy about this episode, the emotions were riding high right from the start at the Verizon Center as Cena and Lesnar exchanged punches, and it really exploded into an all-out brawl just all around the ring. And it had an old-school feel to it, if you will, with the wrestlers coming from the back, pulling people apart. It was definitely... it reminded me of the old days, the glory days, if you will. And I don't want to sound like too old school, but I definitely enjoyed that. John Laurinaitis came out to introduce Lesnar, and he proclaimed Lesnar as the new face of the WWE. And he announced off the top that Lesnar was going to face Cena at Extreme Rules, which is on April the 29th. Lesnar came out, thanked Laurinaitis for having the wisdom to bring back legitimacy to the WWE. But Cena quickly came to the ring, and they had a tense stare down. And Cena decided to slap Lesnar in the face, triggering the brawl. Pandemonium broke loose. The locker room emptied, which I haven't seen that happen to that degree in a long time. Over a dozen superstars and officials. I even saw Goldust in a suit out there, and among others. I saw Mike Rotunda out there as well. Some of our older fans will remember Mike Rotunda, who also was IRS as well. So it took repeated efforts to stop Brock and Cena from pounding on each other. Cena actually suffered a bloody lip as a result of the melee. Looks like the first punch that Lesnar threw was a stiff punch, and it looks like it connected with Cena. And as I said, info@thediamondkshow.com. Miss Smith says, what happened to Brock? He's not as ripped as he was when he first started in WWE. but I still think the match between him and Cena is going to be a classic. Thank you, Ms. Smith. Now, a lot of people know, of course, that Lesnar was in the UFC. He had some health issues, some health scares, if you will, and also the training there is a little bit different. You want to be a little bit leaner for that. But for the most part, I don't know exactly what it was, but I think that Lesnar was on some type of growth hormone or something. The time that he was in the WWE clearly looks different, than that time. But thank you for the email. Also, email from James, who sent his email info@dmvwrestling.com. Cena can beat Lesnar, but it will be damn tough. Okay, and that's actually interesting. A lot of interesting emails about this. David says, how could Brock not make it in the UFC? That guy was a champion, but don't hate Cena. He just started to taste his own blood. A lot of interesting comments, rather. Thank you for those. So who's going to win? Who's going to be victorious in this feud between Brock Lesnar, John Cena? Very interesting. I'd like to get your thoughts. You can call me up, 347-326-9396, and I will get to your call as quickly as time permits. You're listening to the WWE Raw Remix here on Ustreamradio.com, as well as our other digital partners. Be sure to like our Facebook page, facebook.com/DMV Wrestling. All right. Now, it looks like I have several people on hold. We're going to get to them in just a moment. Now, very easy to hear us each and every week. You can also hear us in the archives, dmvwrestling.com. Just click the DMV Wrestling link, and you'll be able to hear the latest episodes of the show. Also had a chance to see the SmackDown show that emanated tonight from Hampton. Was that Hampton? Virginia. Whenever they do the old school episodes of SmackDown, you know that you're going to get a lot of silliness and things like that. And tonight was no exception. We got a lot of the games and the foolishness and the dancing and all of those things. But all in all, it seemed like the people enjoyed the show. No big headlines were made. The Daniel Bryan storyline with AJ that proceeded some more, and it's kind of interesting because Daniel Bryan, the undeserving champion, if you will, doing things. He's just barely getting by, just barely able to maintain his title. But he has some fans, and he has some people that are chanting his name. He has a brand new T-shirt, which he debuted tonight, or at least it's the first time I've seen it, that has the yes, yes, yes on the front of the shirt. It's kind of weird because, they had Sheamus kick the referee, and, it's almost like if I didn't know any better, they're switching places. Is there a double turn coming for Sheamus and Daniel Bryan at Extreme Rules? I think that would be very difficult for these two to pull off. Not impossible, but difficult. Difficult for them to pull off the double turn, if you will. Keep those emails coming, info@dmvwrestling.com. And let's get back to last night's edition of Raw. U.S. champion Santino Marella, Brodus Clay took on Dolph Ziggler and Jack Swagger. And Swagger and Ziggler gained early momentum by teaming up to overwhelm the duo. Okay, let's say that. Brodus Clay, was too much to hold at bay for long. Funkasaurus eventually got the pin on Dolph Ziggler. The thing is that this was a longer match that we've seen Brodus in, and I think he struggles a little bit. I think that he tends to benefit more from these longer matches. His work, it leaves a little much to be desired. Overall, my thoughts on the Brodus Clay character, I did not like it initially. It has grown on me. The people seem to enjoy it. But it's interesting. It's interesting. And I said this before. I did not enjoy the Mother and the Bridge Club segment that they had at WrestleMania. I found it offensive. And I want to know your thoughts. Did you find the Brodus Clay segment at WrestleMania offensive? Did you see it? If you saw it, did you find it offensive? Let me know your thoughts. info@dmvwrestling.com. Let me open the lines up quickly and go to this call coming from the 443 area code. Hello, can you hear me?
Diamond Curry.
Yes, sir.
Jammer here. How are you?
Jammer. How are you, sir?
Oh, man, I'm doing good. I was listening to your comments on some of the comings and goings in the WWE. First and foremost, man, I think Brock Lesnar has returned pretty much like he left. I think that I don't know. I think Cena. My goodness, after he finished working, a program with The Rock, now he's working a program with Lesnar, and he doesn't even have the strap.
Right.
So that's pretty powerful. That says a lot for John Cena.
Definitely.
Because that's two major guys, and of course Lesnar came out, and he was kind of stiff. But you were talking about you haven't seen that type of pandemonium in the ring, with everybody coming from the back to separate these guys. I'm old school. When I say old school, I just like to tell everybody right off the bat that I was at the arena when superstar Billy Graham defeated Bruno Sammartino. Excuse me for calling it the arena because it was the Civic Center back then.
Absolutely.
So, I know my wrestling. But I guess I would say that I haven't seen that type of pandemonium in the ring since Tyson. Was it Tyson and Stone Cold Steve Austin made?
Yeah, definitely.
You remember that little melee?
Definitely.
So it really went over well. It unfortunately, Lesnar made lunch meat out of Cena's face, out of his lips and all, and that really sold well. It looked good on television. It gave it some legitimacy, and the thing about it is Brock is not good with the stick, so he won't do much talking. He's Goldberg reinvented. Well, I'm gonna say reinvented, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's the masher. Not much on the mic, but it should be something to see at Extreme Rules. Now, of course, by me saying that I'm old school, you're talking about the old school show they had tonight on SmackDown, and I must admit I was torn between that and the Orioles and the Yankees.
Yeah.
And what a good ball game it was, but unfortunately the Orioles just lost 4-3, if anybody really cares. But good game, and the team will be better in 2012. But I saw some of the legend or the old school show on a Sci-Fi tonight, and I got a kick out, of course, the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes. And Piper's Pit, Roddy. It's just good. It's almost like, when you go to any other sport and they acknowledge the folks that, was top of the game when you were coming up or, since you've been following over the years. So I really enjoyed that. I didn't see much of the show. I recorded it, so I'll be looking back at it. But Man, I just think Brock Lesnar, so far, they got a lot of heat on this thing. And it's kind of old school. You can see the triple. You know, I was posting on my Facebook page of Jammer Daniels on Facebook that I haven't seen this kind of heat that The Rock and Cena had. You know, it kind of reminded me of the old school heat. But I tell you, Brock Lesnar and Cena picked up right where it is. It is totally different because, you know, I guess Cena. I don't know who's the heel in this situation. Do you know, Diamond K? I mean, has that been defined? Who's the heel? Obviously, Cena is the face, but
Brock.
But nobody likes Cena.
Yeah.
Huh?
I like to think that Brock is the heel.
But he's not been, you know. But you got to keep in mind, nobody likes Cena.
Right, and that's the weird thing about it is that you know, the people that don't like Cena are cheering Brock.
I think Brock is getting popped, man. I think he's getting. I guess they tried to tie him in somehow with Laurinaitis, but it's just not working. I just think that it's equal. It's down the middle. You know, it's the new age where the bad guy is the good guy and the good guy is the bad guy. You know, and so it's going to be something to see. I want to know who else is on the Extreme Rules card. Have they announced any other matches outside of Lesnar and Cena, or?
Yeah, well, I mean, aside from that, and this match was announced tonight with Daniel Bryan and Sheamus in a 2 out of 3 falls match.
Okay.
That match was announced tonight on this edition of the SmackDown.
Okay.
So,
that should be interesting because, of course, a lot of people thought they didn't like the title change so quickly at WrestleMania.
Definitely.
You know, so it's going to be interesting to see. TNA, what's your opinion on TNA in the direction they're going at this point in time?
You know, TNA, I'm liking it better. I'm checking it out every week, and definitely a shift in who they're marketing, and I think it's a shift in the right direction. I predict that James Storm will take the title from Bobby Roode at their upcoming pay-per-view, which is 2 weeks away, I believe. I believe that it is next Sunday.
A lockdown?
Yeah, I believe so.
Mm-hmm.
I believe so. And the James Storm character, I think it's time. He had a brief run with the title. He took it off him relatively quick, but I think it's his time. I'm really enjoying what they're doing with Samoa Joe right now, and well,
he's a great worker.
Yes, he is. He's a great worker. TNA just renewing their deal with Spike TV, so they solidified that they're going to be around and on Spike for some time.
How are they doing in the ratings? I often wonder. I mean, I'm sure they're not getting WWE numbers, but I guess if you say they're renewing their contract, they must be holding their own.
They just renewed their contract. They're doing like a 1.2 every week, and that's pretty steady with the numbers they've been doing over the last 5 years. The weird thing about TNA is that it doesn't matter who's on the card. When Hogan was on the card, and Bischoff, or AJ Styles, or whoever's on the card, they just seem to maintain that same number. It doesn't matter who they bring in. Even when Christian and Booker T were there, they still maintain those same numbers. Like, you just have a certain section of fans that are going to tune into them no matter what. I like to call them the leftover WCW fans. I think that's pretty much who they are. And I
will say this. Go. I'm sorry, Diamond, but I will say this. sorry to interrupt. I will say this. I think they do great overseas.
Definitely.
I think they have a big-time following, overseas, that TNA. It's okay. I like it when when they're at the arena. Every now and again they'll do an arena taping, which can only help them, or what I mean. So it's growing.
A lot of people like that.
Flair's back. He's in it, and you can't lose with that. I'm a big Flair guy. I think he's the greatest wrestler I've ever seen in my lifetime. But speaking of one of the great ones, and I guess we should have. I don't know if you mentioned this on your show, but we lost a true legend in wrestling recently, and that's Chief Jay Strongbow.
Absolutely.
Passed away at the age of 80. Yeah, Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
And a big-time agent for Vince and WWE. And, of course, I go back with Chief Jay Strongbow was in the Worldwide Wrestling Federation.
Absolutely.
And you're talking about somebody that could put asses in Madison Square Garden consistently. He was basically a mid to upper Carter. It all depends on who he was feuding with. But still, when he showed up at the Garden, he always got a pop from start to finish. He came to WWF back in the late 60s, early 70s, and he carried it basically until mid-80s almost, when he was with Julie Strongbow and everything. He played the Native American character. I think his name was Joe Scarpa. I don't know if he had any Native American blood in him, outside of the character. But he looked Indian. He wasn't from Oklahoma or wherever they said he was. He was from Philadelphia. Mm-hmm. And, boy, I tell you, some of the great feuds that Chief Jay Strongbow had, of course, Spurious Arion. One of the big feuds from back in the day, old school wrestling fans would know. And, of course, he had a big feud with Greg Valentine, where broke his leg. And they toured with that around, in the Northeast back in the day. And it just went on and on and on. Even before then, Burns Cicluna, and there was nothing like Strongbow getting pounded in the back throughout the match, and all of a sudden here comes the Warpath dance and that tomahawk chop. And boy, I tell you, he lit up the Civic Center, Capitol Center, the Spectrum in Philadelphia. Chief Jay Strongbow was a major, major act in the WWF and a WWE Hall of Famer. So we would be remiss to go on without, mentioning his passing.
Absolutely.
At the age of 83, he was, he did, I often wondered, when you had the great Indian wrestlers, you had Chief Jay Strongbow, and of course you had Wahoo McDaniels, and they were totally different. They were both Native American, in the squared circle, but they both had totally. I don't believe Wahoo McDaniels had a Warpath dance. If he did, it was very subtle.
Yeah, no, I don't think he did.
He had he would do a couple of hops, but it was nothing to the extent of Jay Strongbow. He would get you up off his feet and come back and get his man, and he was an agent for Vince. He started off working for Vince's dad, and Vince kept him around, and he was an agent for the WWE for many, many years. He died at the age of 83, so it was a good run. Especially for a life of
definitely had a good run.
For life of a professional wrestler to live to 83, that's pretty damn good.
That's rare. Yes, that's very rare.
So rest in peace, Chief Jay Strongbow. But we are the home basically of ROH Wrestling, Ring of Honor.
Yes, and I have you had a chance to check out any of the Ring of Honor shows?
I haven't had a chance to get down to the arena. What is it, done at the Du Burns Arena, is it?
Yeah, they run at the Du Burns Arena here.
In Canton?
Yes, absolutely.
Uh-huh.
And I had the opportunity for the first time this past weekend to check out Ring of Honor on the Sinclair Network. And I thoroughly enjoyed the show.
You saw it on television, or did you go to the taping?
No, I saw it on television. in the Baltimore market here, it comes on channel 14, 1 p.m. and also 10 p.m.
Right. Actually,
it
comes on. Actually, it's on Fox 45 Saturdays at 1, and then I think it switches to NUV.
Right.
That Sunday at 10.
The 10. Yeah,
but it's on Fox 45 at 1. What do you think of it?
I actually enjoyed it. I've heard mixed reviews about it, and I was glad to actually get a chance to look at the show for myself.
Right.
It puts you in that NWA territory feel.
Well, Jim Cornette is a part of it.
Yeah.
And it's based out of Baltimore. I think Sinclair owns it.
Yeah, they own
and,
it.
I've often said I'm sure they'll be doing more tapings here. I know Kelly Gregg was doing some stuff on mainstream media promoting the show. I heard him on 105.7 The Fan, a sports talk station here in Baltimore. He was on there with Bruce Cunningham from Fox 45, imagine, who owns, Sinclair owns, so you can tie that all together. And they had a show here Saturday night. But I hope to get a chance to go to the Dew Burns Arena and see it live. It's a little dark to me. It's a little dark. The ring is dark. The cover is dark. The lights is dark. And, when the light is dark, that's saying something. But the guys, they got some great workers, man. It's up and coming. It is what it is. I don't know the stars well enough to really know the storylines because, just face it, it's minor league compared to TNA, and which is probably, I guess, to term it as baseball, TNA, our Ring of Honor would probably be AA, TNA is AAA, and of course WWE is the major leagues.
Absolutely.
So Shelton Benjamin's there, and Haas is there, and I guess those are big names for the WWE that's gone there. And it is what it is. The guys work hard. It's a lot. It's fast paced. It's quick moving. It reminds you somewhat of the old NWA days.
The glory days.
Yeah, the glory days of NWA, which is probably, in my opinion, the best. Worldwide Wrestling with David Crockett and Tony Schiavone and Bob Caudle and those guys. Nothing quite like that in Nikita Koloff and Ivan and Crusher Khrushchev and, oh my God, it goes on and on. Barry Windham and Lex Luthor, as I like to call him. All the talent in the world that just could never really get over enough. He looked like a big time, superstar in wrestling, but he just couldn't get over. I don't know. Maybe
I'm not quite sure what it is. I want to talk about
what it was about Lex. He just couldn't pull it off. But a Ring of Honor, it's up and coming. Like I said, it's a little dark, and I guess they did that because of the crowd, Yeah. But even the ring cover, if the canvas is dark, which I don't quite understand that.
Bright. I agree. It should be brighter.
Should be brighter, especially if the background is dark.
Yeah, the back. Exactly.
But hey, it's up and coming. It's AA wrestling, and those guys are just trying to get to the next level. So it is what it is. They work hard, man. They work hard. Not too many storylines. Not too much mic time on there, And it's just an up and coming thing, and it's right here in Baltimore. So one Saturday, if I can grab a couple of tickets, I'm definitely going to go down to the Dew Burns Arena and check it out.
I think that's
but
a
I
great
don't want to
idea.
hold you up. I know you got to, move along. But this Lesnar Cena thing is pretty good. And I also, you was talking about Brodus Clay. You better call your mama and all that stuff. Yeah, that's. I'm not a big fan of all that, the dancing and everything. Brodus Clay is his name. He would be such a good wrestler without all that. But, I guess the writers feel as though it's needed. See, sometimes a lot of guys don't need all that fluff, especially when they're talented in the ring.
Yeah, I mean, a big guy like that, I mean, to me it seems like it's a no-brainer. You make him a killer monster heel. It's like a no-brainer.
Yeah, I mean, but it's before he at its best. They're trying to get him over as a face of Santino. And it's working. It's silliness. But it works. The crowd gets into it. It's entertainment. And we all love wrestling, but, hey, nowadays it's really sports entertainment, especially the big money stuff. And,
Truly.
Yeah. So before I go, I'm going to hang up and hear you respond to this. What happens to The Rock now? Is The Rock gone? To come back around SummerSlam?
I think, I think that first, let me say this to all our people listening live. We're going to go off in about 5 minutes. We're going to do, I guess, about 5 minutes of overtime, but you can check us out every Tuesday night right here, 11 p.m. for our wrestling talk with yours truly, Diamond K, the Jammer Daniels here. Now, I think that The Rock is going to probably come back maybe, I don't know, 6 to maybe SummerSlam, Survivor.
That's what I'm thinking.
Around there, yeah.
Yeah, because he's got a lot of movies and stuff. G.I. Joe and all that stuff jumping. But, boy, they said, and it's amazing how sharp he was in the ring. He didn't have any ring rust on him at all at WrestleMania.
No, he looked really good, and if you take him off, you take him off. Who on the roster could have really put some butts in the seats against Cena? I don't know who they could have had. They needed
right. Not even Lesnar at this point. And like I said, the heat between those two guys reminded me of old school heat. I mean, you really wanted to see them guys get it on. I don't know who booked the match, but The Rock got the victory, and for Cena to do that proves that he's really dedicated to the business. So,
what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on the Undertaker Triple H match with Shawn Michaels as the referee?
Wow, those guys inflicted a lot of punishment on each other. I thought everybody was expecting Shawn Michaels to do something, but he did nothing. He called it down the middle.
Right. He called it down the middle.
And I thought it was a good match. For guys that's been in the business for a while and that's not in it, often. Because you don't see Triple H much, and Undertaker shows up basically for the big stuff. Basically, right now, in my opinion, I think the Undertaker shows up basically for WrestleMania and maybe a SummerSlam.
Yeah,
maybe it's like WrestleMania or a Royal Rumble, but it's only like 2 big out of the 4 big pay-per-views. He shows up for 2 of them, and that's it. And Mark Callis, man, I tell you, he took that character to a whole new level. That Undertaker just said bong. It still gets a pop. I think that's one of the greatest pops in wrestling. And I think God rest his soul, Eddie Guerrero's wife, Vicky Guerrero, with that "excuse me." It's amazing how the simple words in wrestling can get the biggest pop. But that "excuse me" is just especially when you're live, you can really feel the heat on that. She really sells that well.
But the crowd thoroughly enjoys that.
Yeah. You told me that not WrestleMania, but Raw came out of Verizon Center in D.C. This week. I forgot all about that. I forgot all about it. Yeah, and then
it could have made the trip up there.
I'm telling you, I've seen quite a few wrestling shows at Verizon, and before then, I forget what it was, AT&T, one of those. I've seen some shows. I saw a pay-per-view there, and some more. Well, you know what? I always thought though the wrestling. I don't know, maybe because I think the arena is more wrestling friendly because it's smaller and it's more personal. But I'll tell you, a horrible place to watch a wrestling match, in my opinion, back in the day, was Capitol Center.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Boy, that was just that was just a horrible place to watch wrestling. But I used to go over there. As a matter of fact, I go back to the time when they would have an afternoon show in D.C. or Landover, Maryland, at the Capitol Center. I think it was John Studd versus Bobby Backlund. I think he bladed both places. Or, he had bladed in D.C. and it was easy to, reopen in Baltimore. But I went to that match in D.C., and then I went to the night show in Baltimore. So, it is such a difference because it's, more up close and personal. But, yeah, it just goes on, this wrestling thing, and I think, I don't know what Vince is planning, Lesnar, to come back to the WWE, but he was really kind of, what's that thing he was in, the
UFC?
Yeah, UFC. He was kind of getting destroyed in that.
Yeah, it was about that time. He had a good run, but it came to an abrupt halt. Very interesting news about that. Last week, the fighter that beat him tested positive for antibiotic steroids. So it appears
Are you serious?
It appears that the match that he had with Lesnar, he actually was on steroids during that match and cheated. So that's
wow. And apparently Brock has gotten off of his.
Yeah, definitely.
Because every time you see him, he's got on a T-shirt. He's still big and powerful.
Right.
He's just naturally big, but he's definitely not. He's not in shape or as young as he was when he was in WWE his first run.
Definitely not.
And I don't expect him to hang around much.
No, I think that he actually signed a 1-year deal, and he's supposed to do two Raw appearances a month.
Okay.
Yeah. So, because his big problem with WWE and wrestling in general was the road schedule. He didn't like the
right.
travel.
Right.
They structured a pretty good deal for him. The last match that the other match that they have announced for Extreme Rules, Chris Jericho against CM Punk. Now this event emanates in Chicago, so we know to expect that.
Yeah, I guess
Chicago
CM
crowd.
Punk. Yeah, and of course CM Punk will get a major pop. And I guess when I say a major pop, I guess his alcoholic dad probably will be in the audience, and his drug addict sister.
What are your thoughts on the way that this program is going? Last night we saw Chris Jericho pour
the alcohol,
a whole case of beer, basically, on him. Is this too much? Is this too much for PG? Are you offended by this at all?
Not as offended as an African American as I am with Brodus Clay, and you better call your mama.
I agree.
But no, not at all. It's just it's just good guy versus bad guy. It's a defined line, heel versus baby face. And in order to be a heel, you gotta pour alcohol on. You gotta do what Jericho's doing. You ain't no need to pour Kool-Aid. He said CM Punk had. You're gonna drink, and I tell you one of the best. I kind of wish he would have did it live, or on top of the stage, on top of the entrance panel that they used, but he did it on the screen. But I thought when Jericho apologized to CM Punk for talking about his father and his alcoholism, and then in the middle of that he said, "But your sister," I said, "That's classic heel." And classic. Classic, and it works. It works. I'm not a Jericho is he's over as a heel. But for some reason, and God bless the Hall of Famer Edge, those guys really just don't. They hold my interest because I'm a wrestling guy, but not quite like the Lesnars and the Cenas. And I guess why I say the Lesnars, and I guess I'll throw Cena in because he, fights all the big weights here. Obviously, he's Vince's golden boy because he gets all the big guys, The Rock, and of course Lesnar. Those situations have some heat now. They really try to throw a lot of heat on that Cena Lesnar thing because of the Extreme Rules pay-per-view. They had to hurry up and get something done and get The Rock on. So I think the Jericho is CM Punk is over and he's good on the stick and everything. It's good. It's good to your average wrestling fan. Just for me, I'm just not a. Jericho is great, and he's good. I don't know what it is, and he's a good worker, and he's good on the mic. But I don't know.
You like him better in WCW?
No, not at all. Not at all. I probably like him better now than I have ever done since he's been a heel for a while in WWE. But the same thing for Edge. I remember Edge was a mat roller, as they would call those guys back then, down in Atlanta on the TBS broadcast on the weekends in the NWA.
That. You're absolutely right.
Oh, so for him to be a Hall of Famer now, that's quite an accomplishment. That's a lot of ass whoopings. So when you're a mat roller, you really take it. You get your $250 and you go on to the next TV taping. But and I guess speaking of that, since I mentioned the Hall of Fame, what did you think of that ceremony?
Well, hopefully when the DVD comes out, we'll get to see more. But the parts that I saw very interesting. I thought that the body language from the Horsemen that they inducted was interesting. Real quick, what did you think about this incarnation of the Horsemen with Tully Blanchard, Arn Anderson, Ric Flair, Barry Windham, J.J. Dillon?
Well, I posted on my Facebook, Jammer Daniels, on my Facebook page, well, when did Ole die? But Ole is just a bitter man. Ole Anderson is just a bitter man.
Yes.
Always has been. He once the show's over, he's out. He's gone. I guess for Barry Windham being an agent in the WWE and, of course, recently being ill, who else could they? Who are they going to bring in there? Steve McMichael? He was
Lex Luger. What about Lex Luger?
So before they went that route, I'll go ahead and accept Barry Windham. I guess outside of Ole Anderson, it was still a good unit when he was there. I just don't understand, and this is something else that I didn't understand.